When it comes to the X-Files, people usually think of the skeptical Scully and open-minded Mulder dynamic that we discussed in the last video. However, what if the writers decided to reverse this dynamic, and much earlier than one would think? This would occur in Season 1, Episode 13, Beyond the Sea. The episode's writers, Glenn Morgan and James Wong, had previously written the earlier episode Squeeze, which features an incredibly creepy mutant. This episode tackles Scully's faith in the paranormal following the death of her father, and Morgan stated in an interview with Starlog magazine that he was inspired by statistics of women who report seeing their husband and son's spirits soon after death, as well as fans criticising Scully's lack of belief. The title is obviously a reference to Bobby Darin's English cover of La Mer by Charles Trenet, which is featured in the episode. Funnily enough, I first heard the song during the end credits of Finding Nemo. We also get a guest appearance from Brad Dourif. But how does Beyond the Sea fare? Let's find out. Without further ado, on with the review.
Polos is life, 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 sleep all night and then Polos is life.
The episode opens with Scully cleaning up after dinner with her parents, and I get the vibe that she wants to give them a good impression given that they weren't sure about her career choice. She falls asleep on the sofa and wakes up to see her father sitting across from her, but she can't hear what he's saying. He disappears, and shortly after, the phone rings. Her distraught mother tells her that her father has died of a heart attack. I think this opening really emphasises how sudden death can be, given that Scully only saw her father earlier that evening. A couple is interrupted by someone impersonating a cop, who attacks them. Scully goes into work the next day and seems caught off guard by Mulder seeming surprised by her coming in, and asking her how she is. She changes the topic to be about work, and Mulder tells her about the kidnapping and how it mirrors one from the previous year, although those victims were found dead after being tortured. Essentially, the FBI has 5 days to find these kids. A serial killer that Mulder caught years before, Luther Lee Boggs, claims to have psychic powers that can help find the kids. Boggs also knew several details about the case that only their relatives could know, which could lend some credibility to these claims. He is currently on death row and wants to have his sentence reduced to life if he can help solve the case. Boggs was sent to the gas chamber before, but was given a suspension at the last minute, which he claims activated his powers. Mulder describes all of this with uncharacteristic skepticism, although he does confirm that he believes in psychic abilities in general. Boggs had a history of zoo sadism and killed his entire family over Thanksgiving dinner, showing little to no remorse after the fact. Yeah, I'm not too surprised that Mulder isn't the biggest fan of this guy. Beyond the Sea plays at Scully's father's funeral, a cute touch given that he was a naval captain. Boggs asks for a visit from Mulder as he's the only person who understands him. Classic. He also addresses the agents by their first names while explaining his abilities, a lot of all souls are connected and that kind of thing. He also explains his ultimate goal here.
Mr. Boggs must be made redemptive for his transgressions.
Mulder gives him a rag in the hopes of getting a psychometric reading, and Boggs has your typical, highly emotional psychic vision. He describes the circumstances that the kids are in, including water falling and a stone angel, and the suffering that they're enduring. Mulder shatters this by revealing that the rag was actually torn from his t-shirt. However, Boggs gives Scully the idea that he might be telling the truth.
Where beyond the shore, we'll kiss just as before.
I don't know, man, you're kinda pitchy. Boggs also addresses Scully as Starbuck, a nickname her father gave her. Scully begins to notice things in her surroundings that match Boggs' vision, and she finds a warehouse where the couple were being held. She lies on her report about how she found the warehouse, which really hurts Mulder's feelings.
What you're really saying is that you didn't want to go on record admitting that you believed in Boggs. The Bureau would expect something like that from spooky Mulder, but not Dana Scully.
I get it, but she's having a rough time, you know? Mulder is pretty convinced that Boggs is working with someone on the outside to try and get a reduced sentence. Personally, I don't see why one would go through all this effort, especially if they're likely to get caught, but crazier things have happened. Mulder gets a local newspaper to print a fake story that the teenagers were found safe, in the hopes that Boggs will phone his partner during phone privileges. Instead, Boggs calls Mulder and asks him why he doesn't believe him when Scully does. Given that time is running out, the agents decide to work with Boggs anyway, who describes the culprit's appearance and that he is now holding the victims in a small boathouse. I really like how short bits of footage of the crime are cut between the footage of Boggs' vision to get the point across. Before the agents leave, Boggs also warns Mulder not to go near the White Cross when they storm the boathouse, as his blood will spill on it. They find the girl and rescue her, and Mulder approaches the culprit's getaway boat and is shot. As Scully covers Mulder with her FBI vest, she notices a white cross above them, stained with Mulder's blood. The girl identifies an ex-convict called Lucas Jackson Henry in hospital, who is witness to a car accident that killed his mother and high school sweetheart. That totally makes sense given his MO. Another agent tells Scully that while the police were never able to prove it, they do suspect that Boggs killed his family with a partner, that partner being Henry. Scully storms into Boggs' cell, accusing him of setting them up and stating that if Mulder dies from his injuries, she will throw the chamber's switch herself. I like how he just stares at her with a bewildered expression like, huh?
What'd I do?
Scully then breaks down and says she'll believe Boggs if she lets him talk to her dad. Boggs refuses and explains that he is terrified of the gas chamber, as he spoke to a pastor for the first time before having his last meal, and saw his family there as he ate it. I think he also felt empathy for the first time in his life, maybe because of his spiritual experience. Scully tries and fails to get Boggs a deal, but he talks to her anyway, revealing that the brewery Henry is now in has a leering blue devil logo. He also tells Scully not to follow Henry to the devil, and to leave that to him. The FBI storm the brewery and rescue the boy. Scully manages to shoot Henry, and chases him along some scaffolding. The brewery's logo is on the wall behind them, and the scaffolding beneath Henry's feet begins to give way. Scully decides not to cross the bridge past the logo, and Henry falls through the scaffolding to his death. Scully visits Boggs and concludes that if he did orchestrate the kidnapping, Henry would have known about the scaffolding. Boggs agrees to deliver Scully's father's message under the circumstance that she attends his execution, but the following day, he sees that she's not there. While visiting Mulder in hospital, Scully states she has changed her mind about Boggs, given that if he knew she was Mulder's partner, he could have looked up the information about her father's death, and used that information to manipulate her. She also confesses that she's actually afraid to believe in the supernatural, and that she knows what her father wanted to say anyway. So, what did I think of Beyond the Sea overall? I think it's one of the strongest episodes of the first season, and is definitely one that sticks in my mind. I really like episodes of The X-Files that let the viewer come to their own conclusions about things, such as Jose Chung, and I feel like Beyond the Sea comes under that umbrella. Something I find interesting about the episode is how they reverse Mulder and Scully's dynamic, and not in a way that's unbelievable. Mulder is like a rock when it comes to his stance on Boggs, and I get the impression that this is because he just doesn't like him. Understandably so, but it does make a change from Mulder's usually open mind. Scully, on the other hand, is more open to the supernatural given her poor mental state following her father's passing. As I said before, this episode really does a good job of emphasizing how these kind of things can really come out of nowhere. Scully has also been established as pretty desperate for her father's approval up until this point in the series, so I can understand why this would be particularly painful for her. For both Scully and Boggs, death has introduced another perspective to them, at least temporarily. You could also argue that Boggs is using Scully's grief as an opportunity to manipulate her, because she's desperate for closure. I think Scully's portrayal in this episode is really sympathetic, although she's a character that I empathise with a lot anyway. I think Mulder was right in saying that she probably shouldn't have come back to work as soon as she did, but I'd like to believe that she got some kind of resolve by the episode's conclusion. Mulder and Scully are back in their original positions by the episode's end as well. Okay, hear me out now. I know that the episode frames Boggs' powers as dubious, but I personally do think that he's telling the truth, or at least believes he is telling the truth. The sharp thing was dumb, but psychic powers are not really one size fits all, and given that Boggs only acquired his own recently, I doubt he even knows how they work. I was convinced by the White Cross segment, as that is way too specific. If Boggs set things up, I don't know why he would focus on or even remember a detail like that, and the blood spilling on the cross would depend on where Mulder was standing and the angle he was shot from. Even if he did do research on Scully, how would he know specific personal details like the Starbuck nickname? Don't get me wrong, Boggs is a very selfish character, otherwise he wouldn't be in the position he's in. He obviously isn't helping the FBI out of the kindness of his heart, but he is genuinely fearful about his spiritual fate. Still, he does end up doing some good with no deal, and I felt genuine sympathy for him when he realised, as far as he was concerned, that he would die alone. I think that's the real reason he wanted Scully there, regardless of whether his powers are real or not. The performances in the episode are great throughout, even among the minor characters. I also really felt sorry for the boy when he thought he was about to die. In conclusion, I think Beyond the Sea is a really strong episode, and I would recommend it to anyone looking to get into the series. What makes it work is how it refuses easy answers about Boggs, while reversing Mulder and Scully's dynamic in a way that feels plausible. Scully's grief makes her vulnerability feel real, and whether Boggs is genuinely psychic matters less than what the episode explores through him. It's a perfect example of the X-Files at its best, in that grey area between belief and doubt. Well, that's all for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.
The blue and green ones are my favorite kind, but I'll eat the colored ones from time to time, 'cause Polos is life, 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 Polos is life. Sleep all night.